You got that sweet theme song I played last week? Got that queued up?
Yeah, it's ready. It was there. Boom. Oh man, the file got corrupted.
Is it the chill wave?
I could probably.
That's what I was listening to.
I feel like you can slow down the BPMs.
For everyone watching at home, BPM, beats per minute. Explore America's favorite BPMs. I'm a fan of 80.
All right, welcome to the greatest movie of all time podcast. This is part movie discussion podcast, part debate show, part clumsy game show. I'm one of your panelists, jurors, whatever you want to call me, Jesse. Today I'm joined with Gabriel.
Hello.
And JB.
Hey.
Hey. Let me see. I wrote a script roughly, but that's about as far as it went. This is, let's see. I've already lost my place.
Let's hear it.
Well, that was the introduction part of our script. But hey, we'll say this. This is officially our first episode, even though we've had an episode before it. This is Onward, Jojo Rabbit. Today's discussion will be two films where we decide whether they're the greatest of all time or not. The way it works is simply we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it. We'll possibly debate it. Then we'll vote. And majority rules. Once a decision is made, that film will be decided as one of the greatest films of all time or not, and it will be referred to as such moving forward forever. All right, so has anybody seen anything lately that maybe not great, could be good, could be bad, but it's just not one of those great contenders? Let's see. JB's thinking. I think Gabriel's locked and loaded.
Yeah. I could do two. I'm gonna stick with one this week. So I did recently rewatch a film from 2006. It's called The Fall. It stars Lee Pace of Pushing Daisies and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I was about to say more popular Guardians of the Galaxy, but
it was also in Wonder Falls, but that was even less known than this film.
Yeah, no, I love this. I love Pushing Daisies and Wonder Falls, but Guardians of the Galaxy ain't half bad.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I know you're a fan of Lee Pace as well. But yeah, this is it's a smaller film. I know the executive producers on this were Spike Jonze and David Fincher. It's directed by Tarsem. I believe that's how you say it. I could be pronouncing that wrong. I think he goes by Tarsem. I think his name is like Tarsem Singh. But yeah, it was the film he directed, I think prior to this, was The Cell.
Yeah, The Cell, which is the crazy J-Lo.
The crazy J-Lo movie.
Yeah.
Crazy J-Lo. But yeah, it's an interesting film. It's like set in the 1920s. Lee Pace is a stunt man who's like suffered a fall and injured himself. He's, potentially pretty severely injured, as in paralyzed. And there's a young little girl. I had no idea how old she is. But she's also suffered a fall and broken her arm. They form a friendship, and through the process, he begins telling the story to her that builds over time. I won't give anything away about like where the plot goes and how it is. I think it's a really good film. I think it's an interesting film. I think it is a vividly colorful and visually stunning film.
Yeah, that's the standout. Like Knee Jerk, though. I reserve my tongue, but Knee Jerk would be like, oh no, that could be one of the greats, and like say Stop the Talk. But I think at the end of the day, it's the memory that's left with it is just the creative visual narrative that it tells, like The Cell, but minus the grotesque nature of The Cell.
Exactly. It's
We're
a
not
lot
chopping,
more.
we're not dissecting horses into different segments.
Yeah. It's a
think-
lot more heartfelt. It
Yeah.
more falls in that, like, as opposed to sci-fi horror, it's more like adventure fantasy drama.
Yeah.
It does go dark.
Yeah.
Not one of the greats.
No,
but-
like I said, like knee jerk, you say, oh, that could be one of the greats, but I think that's just if you held it just on the visual lens. But that's why I didn't say stop, because we do know we can always say, hey, no, that's one of the greats. Let's talk about this later, and we debate it. But no, it's
I think it's a good film.
It's a
but
really
not one of the
film.
greats.
No, I do think it drags a bit in places, and it's like anything. You get used to this beautiful visual. And you're almost like expecting what's the next sort of spectacle that's going to be shown.
Yeah, no, the costuming and the locate, I think it's shot in like something like 18 countries.
Yeah.
But it's a fun film. It's a flawed film, but it's a good film and it's worth a watch, but it's not one of the greats.
Yeah. No, it's good. And I never saw, which I'm just looking up at it, wasn't aware, because I was like, what has he done since? And I see that he directed Mirror Mirror. The Julia Roberts Snow White, is that what it is? I never saw Mirror Mirror.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like something I would have watched.
No, so he got a major Hollywood flick, but haven't seen it. But I'm a little more curious. I'll probably watch Mirror Mirror at some point now, just to kind of see where he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I know he started out directing music videos. I feel like there's probably something else he directed that was like a larger visual spectacle, but also less of a story. I'm gonna cheat and look that up. It's the Immortals.
Okay.
Yeah. He also directed.
No, like I said, yeah, I definitely, like you, I recommend anybody who hasn't seen The Fall to check out The Fall. I think it's a little harder to come by to find. But
yeah, this was one I pulled out of my own personal collection this week and rewatched. But I do think this is his most solid film as a director.
Oh yeah. And it's in that vein of, you could say a little bit of that like magical realism that you see in like Devil's Backbone.
Yeah, absolutely.
That same kind of vein, if anybody's seen them.
Guillermo del Toro's,
Del Toro's, that's the film that it always kind of reminded me a lot of, with like the young child protagonist.
No, I can see that, absolutely.
And obviously not the extreme visual style, but yeah, The Fall. It's good. That's a good one. I'm probably gonna have to pull that out and watch it at some point. It's one of those films where you're with somebody and you're like, oh, you haven't seen The Fall? And you are tempted to either loan them your copy or watch it.
That is exactly what happened.
Well, there you go.
So someone I'm quarantined with was like, I've never seen this, and
yeah, like,
I was like, oh, we're gonna watch this. So,
right,
what about you, JB?
Yeah, see anything?
Oh man, it was a busier week than normal, so I didn't really get to watching many things. Stumbled upon the Avengers, the original, last night.
Like the Joss Whedon first Avengers?
Yeah, that sucked me in for some reason, and I was a little disappointed. Not one of the greats. Not one of the greats. It was good though. You got to think about the time period. It was the first. First.
Yeah. Did you see it when it like?
Oh, when it first came out.
Tell us your Avengers historical baggage with this film.
Oh, I mean, just the production's just gotten bigger and more explosive. The muscles, everything, the special effects, the locations. So, seeing a Captain America without a beard, a Chris Evans without a beard, gosh, it's just so disorienting.
For our new listeners, for our first-time listeners, JB is referencing our first pilot episode, some discussions there.
Yeah, Chris Evans his beard's going to sneak into every podcast. It's going to happen.
We hope.
I have my mission, but I'm not the one who edits these, so yeah, we're good. Understandable. Yeah, it was a simple story, predictable. Lots of different weird plot holes. But what was interesting was seeing it for the first time after so many other of the phased Marvel movies, and sort of seeing maybe what looks like Easter eggs in hindsight. Now knowing where the stories have gone,
Yeah, and plus back
detecting a little
then,
bit of,
plus back then, Joss Whedon was much more involved. Like there was kind of the Joss Whedon, trying to remember back, he had a little more control at the steering wheel until Age of Ultron and stuff. They're like, we're done here. And there were other things with Joss, I know, but I know myself and maybe Gabriel. Back then, we were big. We were on the Joss Whedon hype train.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
Buffy
really?
fans and Angels, Firefly.
yeah, Buffy, Angel, Firefly. What was the one with the clones?
The clones.
Oh,
the
Jesus.
Dollhouse.
Yes, Dollhouse. Not as good as the prior work, but still fun.
Yeah.
No, I actually saw the Avengers in IMAX 3D opening weekend as part of a triple feature. This was shortly after my first child was born, and it was the first time I'd been to the movies in quite some time. And I went and watched Cabin in the Woods,
Okay.
The Avengers, and The Hunger Games.
Wow.
In one day, back to back to back.
Triple feature.
That's a journey.
Yeah, it was.
Cabin in the Woods is a fun film.
That's. I think that's one possibly for a future podcast.
Yeah.
But no, I always liked Joss as a writer. I always liked. I liked the way he wrote dialogue for characters, and to your point, right? I think that first Avengers film is a little more playful and cartoonish in ways that the later films, despite the fact that they're all comic book films, they just get a little more serious, right? And a little darker. So
it's just interesting. At the time it was kind of a big deal, but it's funny in hindsight, kind of what JB said, how that whole narrative has changed. And even myself, who, I don't know, for whatever reason, some of the bigger spectacle movies, I don't get as invested in. I still haven't seen Endgame, but I've seen the others.
I mean,
No. Full
you should
disclosure.
definitely watch Endgame, man.
I saw Infinity War. So I've missed some of the things along the way, but definitely I was definitely more of the earlier at Avengers camp versus the later, but I think that speaks just more time and place.
I mean, absolutely. I get the Marvel fatigue that people, are experiencing and have experienced. I think that's completely valid.
Yeah, and I'm in a way like a hater. I'm just like I said, it's just more like fatigue, oversaturation.
Sure.
As somebody like you're just at that age at the time when like it's all hitting and you're excited, and then you're like, wow, what for like the last 20 years this has been going on or close to it.
There's basically been at least a Marvel film for like the last 15 years. Is that I could be way over exaggerating that, but
no, I think it
feels that way.
But I think my last little point is it does kind of place you in where kind of dates you a bit, but like coming into, I know it's like more Sony world, but it's still Marvel. But the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, like you're kind of heroes of TV and movie, moving into the Marvel realm, and in some ways kind of paving the way for the people who come later and do it better, and and have a kind of better vision and grasp on it. But the Sam Raimi, Joss Whedon kind of superhero, Marvel superhero universe that they kind of helped bring into what it is now.
Those first two Spider-Man movies that Raimi directed are still they're so campy and so much fun, and I love Raimi so much. And it's he ruined it with that third one, and I don't know if that was his fault or the studio's fault, but
I kind of believe, kind of like with I think the meddling that happened with Avengers 2, with Whedon. I think at that point you see a definite clash in vision between some of these more, these established types like Raimi and Whedon, and then the place Marvel and the studios want to go. And they weren't the right peoples for the job long term.
I mean, right around the same time he was directing Avengers, he was also directing Much Ado About Nothing.
Yeah, like a Shakespeare adaptation, in his backyard.
Exactly. Black and white, no less.
Which was really good.
It was really good.
But again, it's when it's something that Whedon can kind of put his hands in and do his thing, and can take the clay the way he wants to. It's I think they're much better experiences. And so, JB, it's funny. As I was swiping through Disney Plus this weekend, getting ready for our Onward discussion, seeing some of the Avengers film, I had some nostalgic feelings for the older films.
Like which films?
No, like the earlier Marvel Phase 1 Avengers stuff, that kind of deal that was on there. I think even by accounts, more modern moviegoers, younger crowds, if you will, would probably be like, yeah, these movies are corny and not as good. So I watched, speaking of an older film, kind of corny, and maybe not as good as I remembered. I watched, there's a little asterisk like this. I watched a film called Mallrats by Kevin Smith.
It's a scooter.
You dumb bastard. It's a boat, sailboat. No, I think a younger me would have said, hey, Mallrats is one of the greats. Holding Up Mallrats is one of my favorites. I did start watching, I have the 10th anniversary edition of the DVD, which has the extended cut, which I started watching that, and the extended cut is I'm confident to say awful. It's a completely different film, opens up completely different, not nearly as tight and good. But then as the film in general, it's still funny, but you could definitely tell it was of a time and an era that has kind of come and gone.
I think there's probably some problematic scenes, and writing in that film that under a 2020 lens don't.
No, it's true, and
don't hold up so well.
It's obvious. It's a young male writing this film in the mid 90s.
Very sophomoric.
Yes. Like I said, I've heard it said, it kind of wanted to be like a modern day Porky's at the time. I get that, and kind of the screwball 80s comedies. It is that, but there's some really questionable things in there. But again, this is Kevin Smith, who put out Yoga Hosers, and who wasn't a pothead when he made that movie, and is a pothead now. And kind of the work he puts out is, in some ways, much more like juvenile and which is funny. It's like, he wrote a movies about Jay and Silent Bob, two drug dealers that kind of hang out at gas stations and malls. And granted, he was just kind of Kevin Smith. The dialogue is great and witty, but now he's just this stoner guy. I mean, I've seen the new Jay and Silent Bob film, which is a stoner comedy. It was neat to go back to Mallrats. It's still a really enjoyable film, if it was an enjoyable film for you at some point in your life. But I think any kind of new viewership might not find it as enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I still feel like his Clerks may still be his best film.
Clerks,
and I mean, I did really enjoy Dogma a lot.
I remember enjoying Dogma. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not revisited Dogma in a while, but I do remember enjoying that quite a lot.
No, I remember liking Dogma. I remember liking Chasing Amy. JB, quick question, so we can get to know you a little bit better. Kevin Smith, it can be a quick answer. Where does he fall? Where does Kevin Smith fall in your realm of movie appreciation?
He's
just experience
with Kevin Smith.
Clerks
once.
Okay, Clerk once. All right.
Yeah.
Clerks might be a film we need to maybe look at in the future. We'll put that on the docket. As I haven't seen it in ages. I came to Kevin Smith by way of Mallrats. In full disclosure.
Did you know the connection to Mallrats in the recent Marvel universe?
Well, I do know what Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Okay. Yep,
I know. I haven't seen it.
It's a reference.
I do know because Stan Lee has quite a recurring role in Mallrats.
Right.
As Stan Lee. Did I say Stan Lee? Stan Lee.
Not Stanley, but Stan Lee.
Stan Lee.
Emphasis on the space.
Those are tough. So Clerks was my first exposure to Kevin Smith, and the appreciation I had for just how small that budget was and how independent and just seemingly shoddily filmed. At that age, I've been obsessed with movies since I was probably like 8 or 9. But that really spoke to me, this notion that it almost felt like anyone could just pick up a camera and just go, you can just go make a movie.
Yeah. No, there was definitely a kind of a many aspiring, ambitious young high schoolers, college kids. It was an era of, hey, you can go make a movie if you want to make a movie.
It also didn't hurt that like the soundtrack featured, indie artists that I was just starting to become aware of. So, yeah, it was definitely very much in that time and of that place. It resonated for those reasons.
Yeah, and the internet was kind of forum boards, things like that were really popping up. So the View Askew network online was kind of a big deal. So kind of though it wasn't labeled as such, but would be labeled as such now, like the kind of nerd culture was kind of drawn to the View Askew. I remember going to the View Askew website all the time, and Kevin Smith would be posting and writing stuff on there. Brian Johnson, all those folks were on there posting things. So no, yeah, it's definitely of an era, of a time. Yeah.
Where would Kevin Smith rank on your list?
Oh, shit! He's not even in like my top 25.
It's unfortunate, been a fall from grace. Yeah. 20 years ago, it'd be a different conversation probably, but I said I still think the guy's entertaining. I still like to listen to him talk. He can ramble on like nobody's business, but sound articulate and have his point. Even though he's thin now, he still sweats a lot. That's entertaining to watch. But he was in Tampa, Florida recently, bringing his little movie roadshow for the last Jay and Silent Bob movie, where he was there. Jason Mewes was here. But like $50 to see that film and to hear him talk was way too high of a price tag for me. So that might show where my level of fandom for Kevin Smith these days.
Yeah, again, I mean, I really think it was something. It was part of the zeitgeist of like the mid 90s, right? It was just he was speaking to a particular crowd in a particular way. And I think the folks that resonated with it really resonated with strongly, and they kind of stuck with him at least for a while. You know,
I drove 45 minutes, an hour with some friends to the closest theater that was playing Chasing Amy, just to see Chasing Amy in the theater. Like I remember making that
which is
trip.
also like that was maybe the closest he came to like any sort of critical acclaim, but is like in retrospect, it's not a very it's not a very good movie, and it's almost disingenuous to, you know, people in the LGBTQ community, like in so many ways.
No, a lot of things with Kevin Smith, especially early Kevin Smith, kind of really border. Mallrats has things like that too. It's tough.
Yeah.
And I was even watching Mallrats and thinking of Chasing Amy too. I wonder how we'd kind of look at some of those films at the time and moving forward without, Kevin Smith had his kind of his fan base, but I think Jason Lee really carried, Jason Lee carries Mallrats. More than Jason Mewes or anybody does. And I remember going to Chasing Amy. Jason Lee was, again, the guy. Like he's the guy who's kind of carrying these films, the comedic pieces, the serious pieces. Like the only character you see in those early Kevin Smith films who really struggles with what he's going through, any sort of character development. He's the only one that really shows it.
No, it's funny, right? Like he started as a skateboarder.
He's a skateboarder, yeah.
And somehow he managed to carry My Name Is Earl for like 5 seasons.
Yeah,
Garfield.
Yeah, that's right. No, wasn't it? No, it's not Garfield. Wasn't it Alvin and the Chipmunks?
Ah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Just the animated pets.
No, but no, you're absolutely right. I think he somehow managed to be the most earnest performer in a lot of those Kevin Smith movies he was in. So,
all right. So, that's a great segue to Disney Plus's Onward. It's our latest and greatest. It's our first film to discuss as one of the greats.
Getting real hard with that Pixar crowd.
Yeah, bringing it back to Marvel. We got Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Starring here is Ian Lightfoot?
Yeah. Well, and his brother's Chris Pratt, who is Star-Lord.
And Chris Pratt, Guardians of the Galaxy. So Pixar, I kind of come and go with the films. I think the up until this film, maybe Inside Out was the last one I'd seen. I'm in kind of the Pixar realm. Don't get to see it as much. But never really met a Pixar film I didn't like.
Oh, really? So what you're saying is you've never seen Cars or Cars 2?
Listen, I enjoy the Cars franchise.
Don't forget Cars 3.
Or Planes?
I've not seen Cars 3, but I've seen the first 2 Cars.
Or Monster University?
I have not seen the Monster films, the Monster Inc. films.
Oh, Monsters Inc. is good. University. It's I never got the degree.
Guys, I'm picky.
Yeah, I dropped out.
I'm pixie with my Pixar, as I like to say.
I'm
pixie with my Pixar.
Kind of sounds like a compliment.
So, so I'll just kind of say this. I kind of went into this, and then I'll kind of turn it over to one of you. We'll kind of give some thoughts about Onward. Was pleasantly surprised. I'll kind of say my first piece. This was a film, like, honestly, I kind of saw the trailer at some point, and the dad with just the legs, the half-body dad, emerging, and the bluish Smurf-colored people. I was like, I don't know if this is for me, and kind of just ignored it. But
that's fair enough.
But I mean, that's kind of why I avoid it. And then you guys are like, hey, let's talk about this. It could be a great. And so I watched it and I enjoyed it.
I'm gonna second you on. I recall seeing the trailer multiple times and thinking, what the fuck is this movie? What is this even about? The trailer was very confusing. All of the trailers were very confusing. They didn't really point me in the direction of having any sort of understanding. of what the film was actually about. And it just felt like, wow, have they really gotten to a point where they don't even have stories anymore? They've just pieced together a bunch of shit, and now these are the trailers we're getting from Pixar.
I felt similar frustrations. Pixar I admire for creating just fantasy worlds out of things that you don't normally think of. So like monsters be under the bed, giving them a narrative, or toys, and to then just go to the sci-fi world of centaurs and goblins and
I'm gonna correct you there. That's fantasy.
But using that world,
Right.
it seemed like low-hanging fruit for Pixar.
Sure.
For sure. Their creative juices were just like on 50% that time.
Yeah, again, the trailers did not do what ultimately ended up being on film justice. But I agree with you. It just felt like, oh wow, now they're just randomly throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks.
But it kind of reads on the trailer. It reads generic. It reads kind of back in the day, like, oh, is this a DreamWorks film or something? You know what I mean? Like back, you would say this is kind of just the generic animated CGI film.
It felt so much like a DreamWorks Illumination type film, and I hate almost all of them.
Well, like Davey said, they read like they're just derivative often. It's like, okay.
So How to Train Your Dragon, right? Like that series of films, those are the only watchable DreamWorks films. Like as far as animated films go.
Yeah.
That's it for me. That's it. And this didn't even feel like it held a candle to that from the trailers. Now, upon actually watching the film, it's a much richer world than what they portrayed in the trailers. The story is a much more sentimental and traditional Pixar story. It's for adults. It's for kids. It's written intelligently enough that adults can relate to it, and it doesn't undermine the intelligence of children. And I think that was something I really appreciated about it. It gets into these themes of acceptance. It gets into these themes of what family really is, and like recognizing what role certain people play in your life when other people aren't present. It really does get into these very like humanistic and emotional themes that I think Pixar does really well, and they do it in a way that again is relatable for both adults and children. But I had no glimpse. Right, there wasn't even a subtle hint that that's what this film was about from the trailer, and so it was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, like in some ways that's refreshing going in that you don't have the film figured out beat for beat as you go, right? So I agree. As the kind of story unraveled and kind of it revealed more and more what's happening here and what this is really about. And this is a film, this is not only about dealing with loss and kind of absence in one's life of a father figure, but like you said, kind of the relationships and the people that are there that you sometimes overlook in these things. So that kind of message, as that was emerging more and more, that was definitely something to latch on to, and was pleasantly surprised getting kind of sucked into that narrative, if you will. That definitely was something that I felt as I watched it.
Speaking of getting pixie with Pixar,
yeah,
I really enjoyed the biker gang.
It's okay. You say that it's funny. The biker gang was one of those points where I'm like, yeah, okay, that's funny. But come on, right? So I don't know. The bikers, those little tiny little fairy things, They didn't quite do it for me. I got slightly annoyed with them and their high-pitched voices. Come on! Get out of my way!
Definitely a trope that has been used plenty of times, but you shrink them down to pixie size and then all of a sudden it's funny again.
Okay.
I mean, for me,
the fact that they drove motorcycles was fun.
Yeah, not really sure how that worked, but sounds good. For me, I think that there were a lot of like, I think there was a lot of the voice talent were people that I recognized from things I've really liked in the past. In particular, you know, the stepdad, the policeman Colt Bronco,
Yeah, that's right.
Right, which Mel Rodriguez from Last Man on Earth,
Yeah,
far underappreciated television series, killed way too soon. Will Forte, Kristen Shaw are fantastic in that, like, and he's fantastic in it. But just being able to hear his voice and like, right, like, oh shit, that's Mel Rodriguez, like, that was nice. Julia Louis-Dreyfus was great as the mom. I mean, Holland and Pratt together, they felt like brothers. Right?
They did.
This very, you know, fraternal sort of like relationship that becomes established over time, and it's this like push and pull of like, how should I feel about this person? We have very different personalities. We approach the world in very different ways, yet we're family and we're connected.
Yeah. Pratt is Barley. You know, he evolved pretty well.
He's Andy Dwyer. He is Andy Dwyer 1,000% as an
yes, and I mean it was Andy Dwyer meets Jack Black in some areas, and I was it got a little tiring and grating at times, but
sure.
But I grew to love him by the end.
And then you know, keeping with the Pixar fucking lineage, they found a way to get John Ratzenberger in there, and I'm always a sucker for Cliff Clavin.
You definitely heard him in there. He was
he's a construction worker there right at the end.
That's what it was. Yeah, and like I said, I kind of like the whole Madripoor storyline of kind of the once a great mythical guardian, and then now stuck in a cheesy thematic restaurant,
themed family restaurant.
Yeah,
that cheese sticks.
That was one of the on the comedic pieces, the sort of the subtle undertones of all that. That was one of my favorite pieces pulling from the film, honestly.
Like Octavia Spencer crushed it. Like, she was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think she's almost always fantastic. I mean, bringing it back to the previous episode, she's in Snowpiercer and just kills it. It was a lot more fun than I expected it to be going in. You know, I watched it because my kids are at that age where like this is what they're into, and I didn't have high expectations, but it absolutely surpassed the expectations I had.
Do you think your kids like got some of the humanistic undertones out of it?
No, I definitely think they did. One of the things I try to do when I watch movies with my kids is always have a conversation after. And like, you know, what did you see there? Like, what do you think that meant? And I think they definitely picked up on this notion that family isn't always like what we expect it to be. You know, having an appreciation for the people who are there, rather than focusing on like what you don't have, was important. I mean, you know, they're in a, you know, their parents are divorced. They split their time between two houses. So I think they maybe were a little more prepared than some other kids to be able to pick up on those messages. But, you know, I think they understood what the messaging was, you know, for a 6 and an 8-year-old. But yeah, it's not overly complex, but it definitely doesn't undermine intelligence, like in
doesn't.
trying to deliver that message.
And I like that. I do like it better. I like their handling of the message, and not, even though it is, by the end they kind of really, obviously the brothers talk about it kind of explicitly, but I did appreciate this much more in, like you said, the kind of more sophisticated handling of it, without kind of beating the audience over the head, spoon feeding it on like a child's level, to kind of give even the children viewers the respect to figure it out. Unlike my previous past Pixar experience, which was Inside Out, which I didn't think was a bad movie, but that was just, it hits you over the head of kind of what they're
Hey, you have emotions, you feel things. Here's another round of these emotions.
Though the message was a good message Inside Out, it was one of those, it's like, Jesus, I get it. Yeah, okay. But then also knowing, hey, I'm an adult watching this, of course I get it.
Sure.
But I do appreciate it. I appreciate it Onward much more in the fact that, hey, it's a little more subtle in what's happening here, and as the characters in the film figure it out, the audience figures it out. It kind of just you're with them in that, and it was I really appreciated that.
I say, yeah, the pacing for the film and the way that the audience is perceiving the film, I feel, was very much the same.
Yeah, it's like, hey, here's the issue, here's our guy, here's the situation, whatever. Let's go have some fun for a bit, and then the movie just goes and have some fun, and then let's kind of bring it all together. So I like that.
So I feel like we've talked about this. I think we're
ready.
I think we're at a place where we need to make a judgment call.
I think we're ready. Yeah, let's make our vote. For the viewers at home, all we do is we all three kind of write down our thoughts, great or not great. Great, not great doesn't mean bad. It just means, hey, it's not one of the greats. We vote. We if it gets the majority today, we have three of us. It only takes 2 votes. So I got mine ready.
I got mine.
JB, wait.
Shit.
JB's like.
JB did not have pen and paper ready.
I did not know. I forgot that we vote.
He's like, what are we doing on this podcast?
I thought we were talking about
I probably
recipes.
need to invest in like a wide tip marker or something.
Right?
What is this?
What? Who? How's this work? I mean, while we're waiting on JB, just want to mention Ali Wong is also a voice talent in this film. Like Wilmer Valderrama, Tracy Ullman.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of really terrific.
No, listen. If
performances.
If Pixar's calling on the phone, if you're worth your weight in salt, you pick it up and you say, "Sure, when you need me."
Yeah, I mean,
give me them monies. Let me have them royalty checks.
Pixar was Steve Jobs' greatest achievement, for sure.
That may not be a stretch of the truth.
I'm telling you, so much better than the iPod.
Yes, spoken like a true Android phone user.
All right, JB, you got it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just had to add some shading to the upper lip.
Yeah, I'm not even bothering with that.
All right, let's do it.
1, 2, 3. Not.
Oh yeah, I got a not great. What do you got, JB?
Oh wow, that camera sucks. I put great.
You put a great. All right.
Wow.
No,
way to go.
Yeah,
It's a good film. I think it's a good animated film. I think it's a good family film. It's not one of the greats. There are places where there are lulls and there are dips, and it could have been tighter. I think there are choices that could have been made that would have made the film more interesting. I was, again, pleasantly surprised by how good the film was.
Same.
But not great.
Yeah. But JB, if you win today's bet, you at least can get the last word.
It's true.
Today's bet. I'm excited.
No, but
Let me tell you, Jesse, I'm excited. I'm excited for
be.
today's bet.
You should
So-
be. I thought of today's bet right before we went online, and I'm pretty excited for it.
So are we ready to hop on our gyroscopic two-wheeled machines and segue into our next film?
Jojo Rabbit. Onward, Jojo Rabbit. It's today's name of today's episode. Jojo Rabbit. All I'll say is kind of jumping into this. I think I was the one who hasn't seen this one up until this viewing.
You were the last to watch this.
I'd last watched it, and full disclosure, not that I was reluctant to watch it. For whatever reason, I had this weird. I saw, speaking to trailers again, and sometimes I go in blind. Sometimes I saw this trailer, and I'm like, oh, what if Wes Anderson made a youth Nazi film? And that's was my thing. Like, oh, it's quirky, whatever.
This is a Wes Anderson propaganda film for Hitler Youth.
But it like I said, it has that look and feel. Moonrise Kingdom on the outset, and to no fault of it, Wes Anderson is kind of his thing. He does it, and so initially I was like, you know what? It's not that I don't want to see it.
Disclaimer: Wes Anderson was not involved in the making of this film.
Yeah.
Neither was Bill Murray.
Yeah, it's like I'm like, where's Bill Murray? What's going on? Where's Jeff Goldblum? I don't see him. I was like, is that Owen Wilson? Nope. So
Adrian Brody.
I'm sorry, that's Sam Rockwell. No, so kind of because of that, it was just one of these that hey, I'll come back to later in a time. Not against it, just not thrilled to see it because I felt naively, I felt that hey, I've not that I've seen this film before, but I've seen films that look like this before. So I'm just gonna hold off on it. That being said, I really like Jojo Rabbit, guys.
What?
Yeah, it was a fun movie. It's funny. The performances across the board are stellar. Love Sam Rockwell's character from beginning to end. The way it's I can't think of a more perfect bookend for a character. The way you introduce him when he's standing there addressing the youth for their first day at the camp, whatever. And then as he's ending in one of his final scenes, you see him near the end of the film, all decked out in his army outfit. It's
you mean his SS outfit?
Yes, it's SS. Yeah, sorry. I was trying to think of ways to say it without kind of with any of these discussions, we try not to give how it all ends, how all the endings away. Try to speak.
Let's not be shrouded in the way we refer to certain characters in this film as big Nazis.
yeah. But it's his book ending, his character from beginning to end is wonderful. For sure. And the boy,
to be clear, Jesse's not endorsing this character's mindset. He's merely endorsing the acting prowess of Sam Rockwell in portraying this comedic version of a Nazi.
Is that a difficult piece with this film in general, right? This film has gotten mixed reviews in its handling of the subject matter. With the Nazi Party, with the
current state of politics in America,
and that it takes a very lighthearted approach at times, and a very comedic and making fun of a lot of the thought and thinking of the time, and then at the same time, we'll take a sharp tonal switch and become very somber, sad, and realistic at the same time at a flip. And I know I can see some people struggling with that tonal imbalance of a film, as you have like imaginary Hitler dancing around saying, "I'm just keeping the bed warm for you," at the same time. So, yeah. So with the Sam Rockwell, that's like right. That's the thing with him. I think he's also a very sympathetic character in this film as well, as a Nazi soldier, and he was one of my favorite performances from beginning to end. But tell me when Sam Rockwell is not your favorite performance. I tell you, find me that film. They're looking right now.
Sam Rockwell, shitty movie. Google.
JB's searching on his phone. So JB, I know you're a fan of Jojo Rabbit. Since we've
Huge fan.
Before in the early discussions of the greatest movie of all time podcast, and this was just kind of a whimsical idea over rotating tires in a driveway.
A little seed.
One evening, Jojo Rabbit, often by you, is like, "Hey, one of the greats."
Oh,
right.
Oh, without a doubt.
So talk to us about JoJo.
You know, I'm on this podcast with some pretty cinematic heavyweights, and I feel like Jojo Rabbit's one of those few movies where I can speak a lot more on the director and the music and the cinematography and the character development. It was just like one of the few movies that I actually did get engrossed in all those aspects. It was interesting. I really enjoyed Taika Waititi as a director. One, I'm fascinated by the country of New Zealand. Two, I'm fascinated by his previous works. What We Do in the Shadows is just like, it's inventive. It's innovative. It's for the same reason I like Pixar. They take something and they add some. They like smash multiple tropes together in a way that in a way that the blend is new. So having a movie about Nazis and having a sort of childlike movie, you know, a Nazi movie told from a child's point of view has been done before, Boy in the Striped Pajamas, but doing it with this sort of like that Taika Waititi flair of just this sentimental family movie was awesome. I loved the roller coasters. Like you said, I think some people would probably experience difficulty going from just absolute weirdness to total seriousness, that this event did happen and it affected a lot of people and tore apart families. But also then you have Hitler dancing around and a kid carrying a rocket launcher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So what are your thoughts on just him playing Hitler, he's Adolf?
I think it was great. I remember even watching a couple interviews where he's dressed up as Hitler and in the conflict he was having on set of like, how do I give feedback about this current scene as the director dressed as Hitler? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I don't think it actually humanized Hitler at all. He's a fantasy representation the whole time.
Of course, yeah. I mean, within the first few minutes, you're not fully aware that he is. The opening scene, which I like that kind of he's there coaching the boy, kind of hyping him up. But then you quickly realize after that that he is this imaginary character.
Oh
yeah. No, like being aware of, I think, the entirety of Taika Waititi's work. At no point do I think he's portraying Nazism as something that is relatable or, hilarious or forgivable. I don't think he portrays Hitler as it's always a misunderstood character.
No.
I think he solely is trying to point to the challenge of being a young child living in Nazi Germany, being indoctrinated in the Hitler Youth, and this notion of coming to this reckoning on your own, of realizing, hey, maybe there's a disconnect here, right? It's not until he meets, I can't think of her name, but the young Jewish girl, and he's forced to like realize like, oh wow, like you aren't these things.
Yeah,
like you aren't this vile creature that I was told you were. You don't have claws, or you're not deformed.
Yeah, you don't have horns. No, like the witnessing and the young boy of JoJo, him struggling with his whole worldview crumbling.
Yeah,
with his mother and what she's into, and and then through the Jewish girl he's getting to know, and then seeing his friends, or his one main friend. What is his name? Like Oki?
Archie, the Yorkie?
Yorkie, yeah. Kind of, but seeing him just struggle with everything he thought and knew and believed.
It's
crumbling.
The humanity comes from the female characters.
Yeah.
Right. And like that I think that speaks to where we are as a society, and like
minus Rebel Wilson's character.
True. But honestly, comedically speaking, this may be my favorite Rebel Wilson performance.
No, I agree. I'm on board with that one.
But
never particularly loved her, but this one I enjoyed her.
But when we talk about the other two female characters, like we talk about JoJo's mom, and we talk about Elsa, and that is where humanity comes from in this film. Like that is the levy to the lighthearted sort of, oh, I have an imaginary friend. He happens to be Adolf. Like it's like, oh, that's almost cringeworthy. But the way it's dealt with, like I'm gonna say, for me, this is a better film than Life is Beautiful. Like, I think it deals with a very complex situation in a way that is relatable and accessible, and it's funny, but it's not disingenuous, and it doesn't downplay the severity of what was happening at that time. I think what people get lost in is the fact that it's a comedy, and that it's a comedy that takes place during a very dark period of human history.
Yeah.
But I don't think it does it with irreverence. I think Life is Beautiful is a comedy. Like, it's very much a comedy. But it's taking that comedic perspective from the side of the oppressed and lightening that, whereas I almost feel like it's more reverential to lighten from the side of the oppressor and poke holes in the arguments that they make about why they are oppressing. And that, to me, I think, was a masterful just stroke and is a beautiful way to try to get at that. Is the film still problematic? Yes. But I think taking the approach that Waititi took, it's not a leap too far. Like, it doesn't feel like victim blaming. Whereas I felt like Life is Beautiful almost felt like, oh, we're going to rationalize this from the side of the oppressed, and we'll just wash away some of these horrible things that the other side did to create the scenario. And this was no, we're going to look at it from the side of the oppressor.
Yeah.
These are the things they did, and this is why this is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stories that come out of the World War II and that narrative of Nazis is looking at the humanism from the people combating those forces from the outside. And this one sort of tells a story from the inside that, like, hey, there were definitely good humans that were surrounded by Nazism from the inside that were still trying to make a change. And yeah, I really enjoyed, like Gabe said, just seeing a child have to grapple with those concepts. So going back to Onward a little bit, I think it would be a tough movie for a kid to watch, but I also think it's more accessible to convey those messages, especially with the fact that your protagonist is a relatable child. Like, it'd be much more easy for another kid to watch that movie and feel the emotions.
Well, yeah, and just the nature of children in general, you have to sort of, mimicry, mindless, the stuff you get indoctrinated in and get fed from an early age, you just spout it and you believe it.
You believe almost all, if not all, of
Yeah.
what adults tell you, right?
Yeah,
And the messaging to the Hitler Youth was very much geared towards creating a very specific mindset. And now he comes home and his mom is functioning from a very different place.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And his mom is struggling with like my son. Like,
yeah, she's like, I need to protect my son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't want to die for my beliefs, because if I died, then he's left alone.
Yeah.
While simultaneously, I as a good human being want to do what's right.
Yeah. And I believe he's good in his core.
He's capable. Exactly. And it's a very conflicting film to watch. It just so happens it's not solely a drama. It is a comedy. Like, it's a dark, and I think that is I think that's what's the hardest pill for people to swallow, is that it's a film that functions in this very poignant way and makes very reasonable social commentary and asks very pertinent questions to modern society.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But it does it in a way that's still light, and you can laugh at times. And I think that's what's confused. I think that's where the conflict for people comes from in watching this film.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to like pause this, because even while I was watching it, it's like I was like, man, I'm really enjoying this film. Like, initially, JB mentioned the music earlier. You know, we got like the Beatles kick it off, but it's in German. It's the music's really great. You're into it. I'm like, this is a great film. It's funny at the start. And then kind of bringing also back to earlier when we talked about some of our things we just watching on our own independently, this sort of like, 2020 lens. My next thought was somewhere within like the first 20, 30 minutes of watching this film was, I'm a little surprised this is a 2020 film. Kind of thinking of people's perception and reactions, and not giving yourself the time to sit with it, digest it, explore it, look at it from the angles. Because I agree, this is a delicate balance of a film, the concepts and themes it's bringing out there. But I also can't imagine. Number one, the story has been told so many different ways and from different angles, coming from the side of the oppressor, coming from within Germany, is, you know, the Nazi party is the way you have to go. And you can't take this extreme serious slant, because then the movie and the impact of it, and I think the message is lost. If your protagonist is if it's through the eyes of a child, then I think by its very nature, it has to be absurd and ridiculous. It has to be, at times, like, because a 10-year-old's view of the world is an understanding of the world is absurd and ridiculous. And so that was my feeling, like, this is the way it has to go. This is the way it would be. And I think that's even part of some of the scenes, like when the Gestapo is looking at his book, Juhu Jew, and they're like laughing at it. And
yeah, I mean,
in a way, they're the audience. I picture them a little bit as the serious audience goer. Commentary as well a little bit, but no, I felt like that was the angle this film had to work, because if you don't take it from the angle YTT did, it doesn't work.
We have the other side of this, right? It's the boy with the striped pajama, or the boy in the striped pajamas.
Yeah.
Which is, again, from a German perspective, child of a Nazi soldier who is monitoring like a concentration camp, and he forms a friendship with a Jewish boy. I think, again, though, that's a very serious film, right? And I don't think we should poke fun at or make fun of, and I don't think that's what Taika Waititi does in this film. I don't think he's poking fun at. I think he's pointing to the absurdity. It's satire about, and again, I think him choosing to do it at this point in time is directly reflective of where we are politically in so many countries, where we're pushing towards nationalist regimes, like, not to be like heavy-handed and make this all serious, but I think he's looking at it and he's saying like, yeah, this is something that needs to be said. Like this is a point in time we can point to and we can draw attention to and say like, hey, this is how absurd this was then, and we want to push towards that now. Mm-hmm. It's just as absurd now, if not more absurd, to think that we should classify people this way, that we should treat people as if they are not the same as us, that we should view them and look at them in some different light than the way we see ourselves. Right. And he makes that point through the evolution of a 10-year-old or 8-year-old or however old JoJo is, right?
Yeah.
It's a child who very quickly recognizes this is someone I should give up. I should give them away to the ruling class because that's what I've been indoctrinated to do. But he stops and he questions it and he asks like, what's actually right? Like this person isn't violating me in any way. Mm-hmm. They're treating me as a human. Maybe I should hide them for another day.
Yeah.
And that's the question we should all be asking ourselves. Like, should we continue to protect the weakest among us for another day? It's fucking serious. I get that. Mm-hmm. But I think that's where satire shines so brightly. It's in being able to point out the fallacy and the farcical nature of reality and really just asking like, how dumb is this shit we do?
Yeah. And at the same time, it works if someone just kind of watches it. It's a film too. I think that someone could just sit and watch and say, "Oh, that was heartfelt and funny on a serious topic." Because I've heard that comment from people who said, "Oh yeah, I saw Jojo Rabbit. It was funny." But I know what they mean when they say it was funny.
Yeah.
But that's their takeaway at the end of the day. Like, oh, that was funny. And I said, okay, cool.
It is a very balanced film, and it's well crafted for what it is.
No, like I said, yeah. Like I said, I was surprised and happy to see a film presented in such a way in 2020 to also get the kind of attention it received. So so I'm glad I saw it.
It's a comedy that really challenges the viewer to
but like I said,
establish where they are, right?
Yeah, but and kind of like we talked about with Knives Out recently, it's in an age of sequels and in an age of kind of regurgitated storylines, to see a film like this and a film with artistic integrity, a solid vision, the incorporation of music as well, but in a way that also says, hey, we're still going to turn this to fit what we need for this film. Yeah. To see that on the level that this film is at. Well, it's usually regulated for smaller films, smaller budgets, smaller exposure. So that was super refreshing.
To literally have a dude that just directed
Thor,
Thor Ragnarok, which is maybe the most hilarious of all the Marvel films.
Which I do need to see that. I really enjoyed the first Thor.
Oh Jesus!
I never saw the second one,
dude.
But again, like my Marvel is so spotty. It's like
ignore all of your Marvel lack of knowledge. Just watch all things Taika Waititi. Like if you've not seen Hunt for the Wilder People, watch that.
I'm a Waititi convert after this film.
Ooh,
Hunt for the Wilder People is hands down.
I'm almost a little ashamed that I like JB's like leaning back and just
feels good. Feels good.
As a person for years, JB and I have been having this discussion now.
We have.
And I've kind of been dismissive. Like I said, I knew it had to be good stuff. Like I said, I know JB's on board, right? He's on the right side of the tracks. But
You're on the wrong side of the tracks. That's where you are right now.
I've been there.
Choo choo.
So I do acknowledge that this film did bring me there. So, but he's been the champion on top of the mountain for years now, and I've been like, what are you squawking about? I'm just
gonna roll off a list of things that you were wrong for having not watched at this point in your life. I'm gonna go with What We Do in the Shadows.
Listen, no, I've seen that. It just didn't click. I've seen that. I just wasn't.
You need to rewatch that. You also need to watch Hunt for the Wilder People.
Yeah, that's on the list.
Which might be my favorite Taika Waititi film.
It's a good one.
This goes for all our listeners here.
Sam Neill's in that.
Sam Neill, Event Horizon.
Oh my God.
I gotcha. Event Horizon, Sam Neill.
And the mom from Housebound. Have you seen Housebound, which is a New Zealand ghost film? It's hard. It's so like I can't even buy. If you want to buy it, you have to buy it, and then they burn you a DVD and mail it to.
All right, I've heard of Housebound. I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, it's terrific. It's terrific.
All right. What else
Taika Waititi did not direct that.
Yeah, what's on my YTT list? So then we get to voting.
Eagle versus Shark.
Yeah,
he directed at least 4, if not 5, episodes of Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah,
I
know that.
I'm sorry. I might be a Taika Waititi fanboy.
I am for sure.
It was like you and JB run the fan club.
But I just he has a very unique comedic perspective as a director and writer, and I think he is unafraid to just share that with the world, and I really appreciate the way he writes and directs. I do.
No, he's a breath of fresh air for me, and I'm glad he exists, and I'm in some ways I'm glad I've neglected his work in the way I have, because now I get this little treasure.
Even if you ignore everything else, fucking watch Hunt for the Wilder People.
No, Hunt for the Wilder People is really one I truly want to see. That and Thor Ragnarok, or after Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah,
those are the two I want to see, and I'll probably watch Thor Ragnarok.
If you appreciate Guardians of the Galaxy for the comedic and like lighthearted nature of it,
it's James Gunn, of course. Yeah.
Well, just Thor Ragnarok takes that 2 to 3 steps just further left.
All right. Well, let's
on the comedic scale.
All right. Well, let's see if my vote even counts. Let's put our vote down for his
JoJo. We're talking JoJo.
One of the greats.
1, 2, 3. One of the greats.
I put
not
great. I put so great.
I put great.
All right.
Really?
Well, listen, I'll tell you my deciding factor, and then for my great, because I mean JB I knew was a shoe-in for a great. I was just kind of counting that one.
Obviously,
I didn't know if I'd be the swing vote or not. It wasn't until kind of the end, and I kind of sat with it, that I said, "This is one of the greats," and the fact that it came out within 2020, or 2020, 2019.
2019, yeah.
That I kind of said, hey, a movie like this happening now, tackling the subject matter, I pushed it over to great. Because I'll be honest, my initial first watching, when I rented it, I stopped 45 minutes in, and I was like, not that I'm not disliking it. I was just like, well, this isn't going to be one of the greats. I'll finish it later. And coming back kind of brought me over. So it's one of the greats, guys.
So
unless no, you can't do it.
No, I just want to say, I think it's a really, really good film. I do.
Yeah, it's your Snowpiercer. I get it. Like my Snowpiercer.
It's. I think because of subject matter, because of is it again? I already said it. I think I said it at the top. I think it's better than Life is Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't
think Life's Beautiful in the greats. So
I don't know that there's a better film made about Nazi Germany and the Holocaust.
That was my thing. My thought was, hey, if I had to watch one kind of Nazi Holocaust film, JoJo Jojo
No,
Rabbit.
this absolutely this is the
my
one.
go-to. Like, I don't
This
want
is the one.
Schindler's List. I don't want Inglourious Bastards. I want Jojo Rabbit.
No, but it's still a hard watch, and I definitely know it's not for everyone. Like I don't think everyone can bend their minds to look at this and break it down into the component pieces and really accept the message that's trying to be delivered. Because I think when you write satire, just there's a large group of people that just don't get it.
No, they really don't. And I think maybe that's also why I lean towards it a bit, when I kind of felt that kind of controversy within its tackling of it. It's sort of like my when I saw Magnolia in the movie theaters. I know it's sometimes my mindset I lean towards. I'm in line to see Magnolia at the theater, whatever, young kid, early 20s, late teens, whatever. The person in front of me is asking the movie attendant person, what's this movie Magnolia about? And the guy selling the tickets goes, well, the newspaper critic gave it an A. But then he goes, but everyone who sees it thinks it's terrible. And I go, I can't wait to see this film. And, I mean, I was in line to see Magnolia, but that kind of Magnolia is a film I really like. But that right there, kind of going in, hey, knowing something that's a little polarizing, I know I can sometimes gravitate towards that.
Yeah, I think this is a challenge for people who really want to push the thresholds of cinema. I love P.T. Anderson. Like I used to P.T. Anderson films. To reference Magnolia, it's a film that is slightly overly long, but there's not a single wasted scene in that film. To me.
And it has points which we all know, kind of, especially the whole, like, these things happen all the time.
Yeah.
That these things hit with people by the end, and you're either going to swallow what happens at the end of that film or you're not. And I think that's kind of what I mean by kind of Jojo Rabbit coming out right now.
Yeah.
I haven't seen many kind of more mainstream or kind of bigger budget films that have pushed the envelope.
I still can't believe a major studio fucking funded this film. Like
that said, and I think that's kind of like, hey, I want more of this, because it felt like kind of bring back to our even Kevin Smith era filmmaking, edgier filmmakers trying to push the envelope and push the edge. They seem to exist more in the mainstream than they do now. It's a dime breed. Tarantino has the free card to do what he wants. But other directors, they're a dying breed on the studio side.
Yeah, no, I think this film just got read as like, oh, this is a comedic director trying to push the envelope, and it didn't land. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's someone who understands the nuance of satire.
Oh, yeah.
Who put together a really poignant, dark comedy. And it just was read the wrong way. And my concern, right? And I think this comes back to my appreciation for, like, Chappelle Show. And then Dave Chappelle looking at what he did and the way it was received. And he realized, like, there's so many people not reading this the way I intended it to be read. And he's like, fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah. No, and he struggled with it. Yeah.
And I just feel like, because it's so well made and it's so not on the nose, there's room for people to misinterpret it.
Oh, definitely.
And that's my fear. And so I think it's great. I don't think it's one of the greats.
Yeah, listen, we voted as one of the greats today. The podcast will have to hold that.
We'll hold it.
We'll have to hold it, and
I'll support it. I'm there.
Hey, like I said, we represent the podcast as a whole, but not necessarily individual feelings of all of us. But speaking of that, we'll kind of get to our vote. We end on a vote. That always gives one of us the last word. And in the event, sometimes we might have an even number of people on the panel. There'll be the tiebreaker. We also said in the case that something get voted not a great, but that didn't happen. What happened with Onward? One could say, you know what, I want to bring this to revisit at a later date with some additional panel people. And if you win the vote, you're always eligible to do that. So speaking of which, here's my vote. I thought of our bet today, if you will. Speaking of Jojo Rabbit and Rotten Tomatoes, which is sometimes where I like to pull my votes from. Rotten Tomatoes on the tomato meter of the critics has a 79% is where Jojo Rabbit falls. Audience score, 94, but we're ignoring the audience. We're looking at the critics, 79. So here is our bet. This is an over-under bet. There's two parts to it, over and under.
Ooh.
And then a differential, like the difference of where you're at. So if you get the over or the under correct, then it's just between who gets those. If we all get it that one incorrect, we'll just do the difference. All right. We started our Jojo Rabbit discussion with Wes Anderson. So here's our bet. I've only looked at Jojo Rabbit's score. Moonrise Kingdom. We're looking for the Rotten Tomatoes score, our guess of where we think Moonrise Kingdom falls. You will guess, is Moonrise Kingdom over 79% or under? Then part two of your bet.
Ooh.
What is the distance? The distance between the score. We don't, so if you say under, you just, how below 79 is it? If you say over, how above is it? And that's our two-parter. Moonrise Kingdom. And full disclosure, a film I have not seen.
Same. But it did just give me the idea. I think
so I am the only one who has seen Moonrise Kingdom.
And again, we're all the honesty system that no one's looking up Moonrise Kingdom. But yeah, it's Rotten Tomatoes score. But anyway, over, under, and then the difference.
I feel like Cake would do a great soundtrack for a Wes Anderson movie.
Listen, JB, I you know what? I'm not there with Cake yet.
I think they're quirky and fun in their own way. Maybe not Wes Anderson, but I think they could collab. Oh man, all right,
Moonrise Kingdom. It's a similar film in the fact of it's like young kids in a camp.
Youth oriented. Adult.
Has that?
I guess judgment of that youth.
Mm-hmm.
They're both directed by Wes Anderson.
No.
Well, yeah, one's ghost directed by Wes Anderson. We got it.
Taika Waititi, ghost director credit Wes Anderson.
All right, so you need over, under, and then your percentage or your.
Do you need time, JB?
I'm good. I got it.
You're good.
I got mine. All right, are you guys ready for the great reveal?
Locked and loaded.
Then we'll look up our answer. Let's share our answers first, then we'll look it up. Yeah.
Should put them in the comments.
I can just show you what I wrote.
You wrote it.
All right, I wrote it. Is it in comments? We can put comments.
No. Let's. I like this. Let's write this down.
All right,
and show it.
It keeps us honest,
So analog.
So
are
we writing the score for Moonrise Kingdom?
Yeah, what I did was, I just wrote over or under, and then I wrote kind of what I thought Moonrise got and the difference between the two. We're looking for over, under, and then the difference.
It's over the score for Jojo Rabbit or under the score for Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, that's going to be our first round. If you get into round one, if you guess correctly, then we'll see who's closest.
And then are we guessing the separation amount or the score?
Yeah. Well, I just put either or, but the separation amount.
Okay.
So, for example, if you thought Moonrise Kingdom got a 50%, right? You would say under by however much that is.
Okay. And what was the score for Jojo? Was it a 79?
79% Jojo Rabbit.
All right.
79.
All right. I'm good. Locked.
All right. So we'll reveal our answer. JB, you're down, right?
I'm ready.
All right. I love it. Moving the camera too. I put over
4%.
I was by 4%, meaning I think Moonrise got an 83. You
David's
say
got
over
over.
6? Is that a 6, JB?
Yeah, it's a 6. That's
All right.
man.
I've got
12.
Over 12.
All right, so
Oh.
we're all in the over camp, which is awesome.
Yikes.
If I recall correctly, I feel like Moonrise Kingdom was well reviewed, and I feel like Jojo Rabbit was a toss-up.
Yeah. Holy moly, guys! Are you ready for this? And remember, Jojo Rabbit got an audience rating of 94%. Jojo did.
That's right, but
Moonrise,
we're talking about tomato meter.
It's true. Just so we know, just so we kind of get where people are, because there's usually, public and critic. They don't always see the same. For Moonrise Kingdom, the audience gave it an 86%.
Oh.
Okay. So the audience likes JoJo better.
I'm not looking good.
The tomato meter for Moonrise Kingdom is over, and it is at 93%. That puts Gabriel as our winner.
Gabe.
He gets he gets the last word, and he also gets the option to bring Onward back for another day, should you choose for another day.
I'm good with. We can just leave Onward with where it lies. I mean, it's not the corpse of Onward. We gave a very beautiful eulogy to Onward.
Just the bottom half.
No,
Yeah, the floor is yours. We're not going to say anything. You'll say your last word, and we'll just say goodnight.
My last word is, I think people should watch Jojo Rabbit. I think people should watch Onward. I don't think either of them are in the greats, but I do think they're very well made films, particularly in the genres in which they're made. Onward is a very good fantasy comedy for children and adults to share in. I think Jojo Rabbit is a really great dark comedy about the Holocaust for people to watch and really think about how challenging that must have been for children who grew up in Nazi Germany. That's super fucking complicated, but I think it's real, and I think it mirrors where we are today. So,
right, and that is our last word, and this has been the greatest movies of all times podcast. And, good night.
Good night.
Good night.